How's it all doing? Everyone doing well on the call? Still with us? We've got one more amazing session to go. So it's the final session, and it's one that I think will really resonate here. TV metrics and outcomes. We talked a bit about measurement in that previous session, and we know how important it is. I'm looking forward to getting into the metrics and outcomes. So obviously, as connected TV continues to evolve, advertisers are always looking for new ways to measure the effectiveness of their campaigns and to prove that all-important ROI. So how do we define success in this space, and what metrics do matter the most? Well, lucky for you, today we have a panel of industry leaders who will share their expertise on navigating exactly these questions, as well as the tools and techniques that are driving more precise measurement in connected TV. I'm delighted to welcome to the stage Sarah Lewis, the Global Director of Connected TV at Show Heroes. And I'll pass it over to you, Sarah, to introduce your esteemed panel, who are all the perfect people to tell us what's really going on.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And thank you to everyone for sticking around. It's obviously our last panel of the day. I think the previous panel actually teed us up really well for this panel. It was measurement and metrics in CTV seems to be something very hot topic, and obviously something that we really need to fully understand and have a look at in more depth. So let's go to our wonderful panelists. And if you could just introduce yourselves quickly and your role. Maybe if we start with Anita.
Thanks, Sarah. So my name's Anita Karras. I'm International VP of Insights and Measurement at Teads. For anyone who doesn't know Teads, they provide digital advertising services, including CTV for publishers, advertisers and their audiences. So essentially connecting marketers with premium inventory at scale across the globe.
Brilliant. Thank you. David?
So Magnite, I look after partnerships in the European marketplace. So I've got the absolute pleasure of chatting with a vast array of measurement partners and getting under the skin and the surface of what some of those propositions bring and how we apply them in Magnite's world. And it's an absolute delight to be here, Sarah and Anita and Jack, with you guys. Appreciate the opportunity from the IAB too.
We're very happy to have you. And Jack?
Hello, everyone. I'm also Vice Chairman of the IAB Brand Advertising Committee. I'm advising companies such as Visnet on the CTV arena.
Brilliant. Thank you, everyone. So let's get to our first question. So let's start off. What are the most important metrics when we're looking at the success of CTV campaigns now? And why do those metrics matter most? So if Jacques, if we go to you for a bit of a global perspective to start with.
Okay. Well, KPIs can be seen in a very, very wide perspective. It could be media, it could be marketing, it could be business. So if I'm focusing on my very campaign right now, I will look for impression, I will look for reach and frequency, I will look for depart, I will look for more and more for each advertising within the campaigns. Because of the DCO on AI now, you want to have the performance on each creative. But now, if I get the big picture, for me, the biggest maybe is reach and frequency, because I'm always taking care of the user experience. And if you get 10 times the same ad, is going to be fed up. So reach and frequency is going to be, I think, for me, very important things, which implies cross-device measurement, of course, because you want to make sure that altogether it doesn't get 10 times the same ads. If you want to refine, you will go to a frequency spread to make sure that you get maybe 5 times the ads are not 10 or not true. So this is the first metrics, which I think is important. The second one will be the incremental reach. It has been said just before, because of the CTV purpose, you want to have additional reach versus TV or versus other media. So this is for me the second, I would say, marketing metrics. And then you can have a more business metrics, which is quite new in the TV arena. Like I want to make sure I have for my money. So I'm not only looking for the notoriety, but I want to see where does this drive business, and this drives or this create new KPIs, which are quite new in the TV arena. So this for me would be the third things, and the fourth one. I was thinking of it, and we talked with Anita before, is the attention, because attention is quite new. It's more come from the digital arena. Now it comes to the TV arena. And of course, it's a must for the TV because it's a large screen. it's a sound on, it's only a unique ad on the TV, so it got all the assets to become a premium attention. So I think it could be a good KPI and good buster for CTV. Of course, you have brand safety. You have all these traditional KPI, I would say, which are quite important. But maybe a last one, so my kids will like me, is greenhouse gas consumption, because we didn't talk since the beginning of this talk. But if we can have an additional KPI dealing with this carbon estimation, it would be, I think, quite a good KPI. So this is the global picture.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jacques. So, I mean, you know, we've definitely felt like measurement in CTV has been challenging, but it sounds like there is a lot of development now and a lot of things that you can start to look at. Obviously, Jacques went through quite a few different metrics there. Anita, what would you say is like the most important one for you?
So I think what's being asked a lot of at the moment is definitely that incremental reach versus linear TV. Are we adding incrementality? And from the work that we've done with both LG Ads and Samba, I would like to say that we're seeing a definitive yes in that area. In terms of overlap for campaigns that we've seen between digital and CTV, we've only had sort of about 2%, and what they're hitting is around 71 to 72% of light TV, linear TV viewers versus our linear TV being at the 18% proportion. So we really do see the value of bringing CTV into the mix. But I also kind of wanted to draw on from that, if we actually think of the USP of TV, and this has actually been brought up in some of the previous discussions, for me, it's really about delivering the great content. So we've been talking about this premium inventory that is engaging, but more importantly, creating that emotional connection with the audience to drive that marketing outcome that all marketers are craving, right? So that's why I feel that we actually need the other measures of attention, brand lift, and going into MMM. So really kind of then going into that ROI. So in terms of our measurement suite, we do work with a number of suppliers, from the incrementality through to lumens and T-Visions for attention, on-device and Synth in the brand lift space, and then Sakana, Ecometrics in the MMM, to really start to give us that holistic picture of what those measurement metrics that matter and take us right the way through the funnel, and bring the best of, I suppose, digital to the big screen as well in the process.
Yeah, definitely. I love that you mentioned the kind of emotional connection, because I think that's something almost not completely unique, but quite unique to the big screen, right? We did some research a couple of years ago and have updated it recently. But one thing that we found when we interviewed people about CTV was they watch it with their family. There's this like, you know, there's this shared experience. And that, I think that's something we need to remember and kind of really lean into with the types of creatives and things that we do in CTV. So yeah, absolutely. And David, how about you? I mean, you know, measurement is fundamental, of course, on the SSP side. So what do you find is the kind of most important thing to look at?
I've got to say some super strong answers there already on this one, and I'm going to just echo pretty much everything that's been said. But I think, like, if you take that landscape of different measurement alternatives that are out there, if I look at it practically from our perspective, there's very much an evolution of CTV as it kind of starts to break out of this very much upper funnel focus that's been the leader and the driver of this, and that's kind of a if you like, a trajectory that's continuing. But we do very much see some of these kind of measurement capabilities as being very additive to each other, actually, and that they go together. We find a lot of really good success with a combination of, you know, effectively, like at the top end, take a look at brand lift, use some incremental reach surveys to just help quantify and measure the size of that audience, which is genuinely unique, you know, over and above that kind of linear viewership that you can reach through CTV. And let's also not forget, you know, good solid classic audience measurement, you know. So if you put those three together, then really we get to is a really solid kind of storytelling around the fact that using a combination of those tools, you can deliver that message back to the buyer to give them the confidence, which is what all this measurement does at the end of the day. It's building that confidence that not only did I find like a new audience for my creative, You know, they were absolutely on target, and I've left them with a message that resonated with them. That brand lift survey helps me know that it's not just a fleeting experience of an ad and it's gone. There's been an impact on the consumer there. And I think if I build on that just a little more, is that's sort of where we sit at the moment. But there's definitely gradual moves more into the attribution end of the scale, as somebody mentioned earlier on, very much that move towards more performance marketing rather than just that kind of upper funnel stuff at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you mentioned attribution there. That's something that we're seeing quite a lot of advancements in. You know, it's helping to kind of better connect CTV ad exposure to, you know, real world outcomes. How can advertisers leverage that advantage? Who'd like to go next? David, you mentioned it, so I'm going to go to you first.
Yeah, I mean, so one of the things I would say on this is it's been up until sort of recently-ish a semi kind of disconnected experience in some ways, right? Because, you know, you've got this wonderful viewing environment which captures the consumer, and that's a great place to be. But it's quite hard to actually then connect that with an action the consumer can take as a result. And, you know, we do see sort of a steady growth in the use of things like QR codes, which are, you know, they're a great step forwards because they bring a bit of more of a direct connection between like the ad view and the action in an online sense. And that's already quite a significant step on from those modeling tools, which they'll do some sort of time-based work effectively to kind of track website visiting and ads, and just, you know, they'll model, you know, all very valuably, but they'll model that kind of activity. You know, I would say looking beyond that, you know, there's other kind of tools and techniques that are growing in this industry. We've seen kind of clean rooms coming onto the scene a bit more as a way to, again, try and join those endpoints together, the sort of ad served audience with a loyalty audience from a CDP, for example. But you've got a new class of almost like persistent ID solutions kind of evolving in the European market as well, which I think also represent a really interesting opportunity to more clearly know that it's the same person who viewed the ad, who, you know, visited the website, who maybe even with some CDP connectivity turned up in a store and bought the product. So I think there's quite a lot of evolution going on there for sure. And I, in particular, you know, from a personal perspective, feel quite excited about the overlaps there between where CTV engages and where retail media opportunities sit.
Yeah, definitely. And Jacques, what about?
I was smiling because attribution. When we look at attribution, you have and I'm sure Anita or we talk further about this, but you have a emerging solution, very complex or very light solution. But as you just say, a QR code. When you scan a QR code, you have a direct dotted.
It's a very purposeful.
And I was working with a cloud pass company. They scan the code and then it directly go into your wallet, because when you watch a movie or TV, usually 80% of the people, they have their mobile with them. So scanning it, you just have a direct link and you have the direct connection, direct attribution. So it's quite fun to see that it could be either with very complex things, with IDs, we will talk maybe later, with IDs, with hash IPs and so forth, combining solution, or it could be the QR code.
I think maybe a combination of the both, right? We want to see like how much that purposeful, you know, very valuable user interaction is, but also there's different types of user interactions, maybe people who don't scan a QR code but do still take action after seeing the ad. So I think a combination.
What I like with the QR code, but it's not the only solution. What I like is it respects the user experience. When you watch an ad, maybe you are interested by the ad, maybe you want it for later, you want to buy it later or watch it later. So you just scan it and you have it later on your mobile. And then you can still watch your show and then you go for your ad. And I think it's kind of interesting way of respecting the user experience.
Yeah, definitely. And Anita, you've worked in that space quite a lot.
Yeah, I think just building on sort of the previous panelists' answers, I think the QR code is interesting because if you take it on its own, you go, well, that's a small sample, right, that's interacting. But what we found through the research we've done is by that very presence, it captures attention, right? Having a QR code makes it different. It makes it stand out at the moment. So there's more value than just purely that interplay between the QR code and the scanning, and things that we're playing with, kind of, I suppose, on that creative front, is what else can we do when we bring digital to the big screen? So we're working with a number of suppliers. I'll mention a couple today. So Say It Now, for example, connects native video with Alexa. So that's opened up a huge range of innovative sort of opportunities from a marketer's perspective. So if you are a brand such as something, I don't know, like Pizza Hut, and you have an ad on CTV, that could link directly to your mobile Alexa app, offering an immediate voucher code to the retailer sort of site. Enabling that further sort of dialogue and interaction in a fully consented, again, environment for you to interact at your own time and in your own leisure, which again is this permission-based and adding value. So for me, all of this privacy, it's been great that it's come to the fore. It's put the consumer back into control, and it's about how do we add value and really get that value exchange and think about innovative solutions to work within those parameters and that framework. Similarly, audio stack, completely different. That's kind of using AI to localize sort of video creatives on CTV. So that adds a layer of personalization and a call to action. So you'll have accents that are familiar to you with your surroundings, and actually be directing you to the local automotive store, which is round the corner from your household. So very much kind of starts to bring it back into the place and space of you and what can be actionable to you. So I think there's really interesting call to actions that are now evolving from that we are sort of seeing great immediate kind of results on the back end through the data that we're bringing to light.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're right with the idea that you can kind of scan and then do that at your leisure. That fits in so well with the CTV screen, because it's that real lean back leisure time kind of watching. And so being able to have that interaction, but also then, you know, have that sent to your phone and have a look at it later, it's into the experience perfectly.
I think just one more thing that's just kind of come to mind. So they're very much sort of performance driven, but we've also seen quite a lot of work with luxury brands where we've brought AR virtual try-ons to the big screen. So that's basically repurposing assets that they've got elsewhere. And that again is bringing a whole new kind of dimension on a big screen in your living room, seeing that really sort of luxurious, immersive brand coming to life. So again, that's more of a brand experience, but I feel there's again incremental value by being able to bring that into the home screen kind of space.
Definitely. When you've got the attention, let's make it as creative and engaging as possible. Definitely. And how can advertisers like align their CTV metrics with their broader marketing goals and, you know, ensure consistency across omnichannel campaigns? Because that's something that has obviously been very challenging. You know, we have, you know, so many different screens that we need to reach people across now. How can we do that? David, if you want to start.
Yeah, you've said the word there, challenging, Sarah. And I think we've, as an industry, we've been finding this challenging for a while, but I feel confident there are some pretty hefty players that are busy, you know, working out answers to that. And like we often say cross-channel, we say omnichannel, we sort of interchange these things quite a bit actually. And although there's an awful lot of industry focus on that kind of one true, let's say, single currency approach to this measurement piece, and we absolutely should be pursuing that as an industry, because that's really where it helps the kind of advertisers, the buy sides, have that clarity to inform some of their kind of media buying plans. I think there's opportunities for us in the nearer term, though, to look a little bit more at some of the kind of individual channels, because although we might not be able to directly compare the things like a CTV channel compared to other classic sort of online video channels, they behave differently. I mean, the measurement methods are different by almost by definition. It is really hard to find a consistent way to measure across all of them. And I do very much feel like there's an opportunity for us as an industry to get behind some consistency, perhaps at a channel level, and then work out between us how we can properly interchange those in a way that is a good approximation of, for the time being, what a single kind of true currency piece would be. And I know there's, there are some elements of that evolving that we see already. But yeah, challenging, especially, even if I say this, like, especially if you pour in different European markets as well. You've got, different chicks, you've got different providers of, audience panels. There's an awful lot into that bucket. So I'm a bit of a sort of recommender for just kind of simplify the problem a little bit, find something that can be consistent in a channel, work that up, then, do the same for the other channels, and we'll at least be moving forwards a step while the bigger brains are working on the true single currency piece. Yeah,
good advice there for sure. Jacques, what's your kind of thoughts on this?
Now, I understand it's a challenge, but for me, it's there are hundreds of solutions, but we can centralize them. The first thing is centralizing the data, because they're all coming from everywhere. So we talk about CDP, DMPs, clean rooms. So the first thing is to make all these work together. You may have IPs, you may have IDs, you may have mobile phone, you may have emails. You have to unify that, taking into account GDPR, of course, and making sure that you get unified. So starting from multi-sources to a centralized database. For me, this is the first thing. Second thing would be, I would say, unify IDs. You have people working, creating IDs, but only for their own garden, I would say. And we have to find IDs we can work cross-platform. So there are some now on the market, and I think it's good to go. And the last thing is, I would say, the multi-touch attribution, I would say, where you would say maybe people come on the shop, not only because of your ad, but because of multiple ads in different channels. So addressing multi-touch, we solve this. So this is for me the speaking multi-touch, unique IDs, and centralized data.
Yeah, I think that's something we've inherited even from the kind of old online video last click attribution days.
Yeah.
We oversimplified and had to really kind of bring it back and be like actually understanding the impact of multi-touch for sure. Yeah, definitely. And Anita, how about you?
Yeah, I think building on that, I mean, if we step back and think about ultimately what are marketers trying to do, they're trying to shift products, and it may be building the brand to shift products and that favorability, which then brings back marketing or media mix modeling into that. And that's where, to Jacques' point of kind of having these what are seen as disparate data points, bring them all together to use the beauty of maths and statistical analysis to say, how do these things interplay and work together to drive results? And then what are each of those mediums doing, both in the short and the long term? Obviously, you've got to have good data in to get great assets out. But for me, I'm a real fan in really sort of exploring that further, because to me, that starts to give a level playing field, because I absolutely agree we shouldn't put everything into one metric to define it, because they've all got unique talents, they've all got unique opportunities. Radio works in higher sort of awareness, and then you've got sort of, that emotional connection through the big screen, and then you've got sort of driving performance with digital, very generalistic, but all of those things have a role to play, and we know that there is an interplay. We are exposed across multiple devices, so it's not one against another. It's understanding the beauty of working across the mix, but from being a responsible marketeer, you want to know how much weight to putting in each of those elements, and hence that's where I feel the media mix modeling can really start to play when done well. So it's in all of our interests to make sure that we've got robust and rigorous data that we can feed in and power these models to bring out the sort of results that enable us to sort of isolate out those impacts.
Yeah, adjusting the things like the creative to those different kind of purposes and experience as well, I think is really important, because like you said, you have different connections and different ways of interacting with different media. So let's make sure that we're kind of adjusting that creative to fit that, and then we can kind of measure that off the back of that. Really important for sure. So we haven't got much time left, unfortunately, but I'm just going to ask, what are some common pitfalls or challenges in measuring CTV, and what would be your advice to kind of avoid that? David, let's start.
Yeah, I would say like one of the things we bump into the most is there's still quite a dependence on panel-based approaches for some of these kind of measurement techniques. And like if you're in the US, that's not an issue because the scale's there. But when you're running multi-geo campaigns across the European marketplace and you're embracing the UK and Italy and Spain, France, Germany, they're all very different in terms of the scale of the campaign in the first place, the kind of size of the panels. So like one of the bigger pitfalls that we kind of see and bump into an awful lot is just that raw minimum viable scale before you can actually bring some of these panel-based tools to bear and to use them, particularly when you're looking for that sort of cross-region type of measurement solution. But on the plus side, there are a number of partners that we work with they're getting a little bit more into that kind of direct attribution space. You know, ACR data was mentioned earlier on, which kind of is very much walking down that path. It bumps a little bit in its own way into sort of OEM kind of, you know, boundaries, let's say, down that. But it's like pros and cons of each of these sort of solutions. So I think like the biggest challenge that we see is really just getting the right combination of those measurement things to fit the size and scale that's meaningful in each of those regions, so you can combine it into a useful campaign. I'm going to roll it out there. You know, test and learn is the advice. Like you've just got to try this stuff out in market and see what works for you well, what's successful, and what things fit together best.
Yeah, definitely. And Jacques, what do you think is?
I will be quick because only 2 minutes left for Anita.
Sorry, you could be quick.
No, when I look back at all we have seen of the pitfall, platform fragmentation, inconsistent ID, problem of attribution, overexposure, all this. I think for me the biggest pitfall, and we have seen that with the digital TV task force at IAB France, which is led by Stéphane Bismuth from Bisnet. They address this, and it will be coming soon. For me, the biggest pitfall, there were 2 players, now there are 3, because before you had the ISPs, you have the broadcasters, and now you have the TV suppliers, and they all want to play their game, which is, I understand, they all want to take that, but if they all go in their own direction, I'm afraid that the pie, the advertising pie on the CTV will reduce, because as it was very nicely said before, the competitor is not only TV, is also social media. People, all the money is going there. So they have to merge together. They have a chance, because now if you go to Meta, TikTok, YouTube, Amazon Prime Video, you have 4 buying systems. So let's make a unique buying system for CTV, and they will gain a lot of time and a lot.
Wouldn't that be nice for sure? Anita, just very quickly, if you give your last.
So pitfalls, complexity, fragmentation. How do we as a media supplier respond to that? It's in our interest to simplify. So we thought about our inventory, developed Reachcast, which basically means you can buy by context, regardless of screen. So that really starts to go into that contextual world. And then on the measurement front, kind of getting that curated list. So, you know, people come to us, they say they want reach, attention, brand lift, and we say, this is how to do. And I think through that it's in our interest, but also our job to give that curation back to our clients, and to continue to push those measurement suppliers to make sure we're as robust, rigorous, and as inclusive across all media as we can be.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you very much to everyone for joining, and thank you for watching.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sarah, Jacques, David, Anita, for all of your wonderful contributions. It was great to hear those perspectives on CTV metrics. Some really interesting points raised, and yeah, a really big thank you again. So as we wrap up today's virtual CTV event, I wanted to take